I think the thing that people need to realize, because I get people who go, oh, I'm, YOLO, you only live once. I don't really care about, planning for the future. I'm going to work forever. There's always these kind of excuses. But when you dig into what people, I would say pretty universally want, is financial independence or freedom. When you hit that point that you know that you can self sustain for the rest of your life and you can do what you want when you want, you can invite people who you want and tell other people to go away. You can, like there's nobody holding you to, you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to survive.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super excited to have you here today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm so excited.
So give everybody the highlight of who you are and what you do for business.
Sure. So my name's Lisa Sakai. I am in Northern Arizona. I've been a business owner for, almost 13 years now. And I do financial planning. I focus a lot on the planning, money mindset, financial freedom, getting people to, financial independence as quickly as possible. I work a lot with the FIRE movement people, and basically, just getting them to that. And I do specialize in working with women who don't have kids, but I've worked with plenty of people that have kids, so that's not a problem. But I do think there's a unique set of things that happen when you don't have kids, things to consider. So that's just in a very short about me. So
Nice. So let's back up the bus a little bit. How did you get into finances as your thing?
Oh, that's a long story. So basically, when
Grab my coffee
I
and I'll put you on mute and you go right ahead.
exactly. So I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in one of the suburbs of Los Angeles, and I thought I was going to be in Hollywood. So I was going to be a screenwriter, and then I was going to be a producer, and then I was going to be talent. And like I did all this stuff, and I did that. I worked in a lot of that for a couple of years, and I was working in a big production agency, and I was getting the boss's car washed for the probably fourth time that week. And it's before iPhones and stuff. So I was just sitting there thinking, like we have to do when we didn't have phones to look at. And I just thought, I'm kind of done with this. I kind of don't want to do this anymore. I don't know how much of an impact I'm really making for people in the amount of time that I'm working. The amount of time I'm working is not correlated to the amount of impact I'm having. And so I just kind of decided to pursue something that I felt like I was making a difference. So I did a complete 180 and I went into teaching, and I taught for elementary school for many years. Not many, I would say 5 years. And that was great. It was very nice, but the politics of education, everybody kind of knows of how that works. It's more of a corporation than I was expecting it to be. And I just was kind of tired of getting laid off. It was around 2008, 2009 when I was really kind of getting the swing of things, and I kept getting laid off because it was their way of being able to save money, is to keep me in the lower salary side of it. So it starts to make you think of, do I really want to do this? Am I making the impact I want? I really wasn't, because I was seeing the impact I was having for kids. They would go off to the next year, and unfortunately the teachers that were the next year up weren't necessarily very passionate about teaching anymore, and all the hard work I was doing was kind of for waste. So I started looking at other options, like how can I work with people all the way through? How can I really make an impact? And they love teachers in financial planning and invest or insurance in particular. And so I kept getting reached out to people when monster.com was a thing. I don't even know if it's around or not anymore. But I kept getting reached out to talk about insurance and that kind of thing. And I started my journey in finance, found that insurance is important, but I didn't want that to be my primary thing. So I started working on investments and financial, advice and that kind of stuff, and kind of worked my way into the business that I have now, which is very advice planning based. And obviously I help with investing and insurance, but that's definitely not what I talk to clients about most of the time. So
Nice. I love it. So when you're working with women without children, I like to tease, is that because you were an elementary school teacher? Like, yeah, I don't want your kids
probably
around during a meeting.
there are a lot of teachers that don't have kids. It's so funny. That wasn't the reason for me, but there's just a lot of teachers that say I have my 30 kids that I deal with every single day. I don't need any more. So
Right. I would think
yeah,
30
so
is
it
enough.
does happen.
So,
But no, I just didn't. Actually, well, I would say it did have kind of an impact on me. I didn't have kids mainly because I saw a lot of parents that just probably shouldn't have had children and didn't treat their children very nicely. And I saw why
aw.
they were problems in the classroom. And so I just decided that I wasn't going to have kids until I really wanted them. And I just never got the urge to have kids. That was kind of, there was no, cause or anything I was trying to do. It was just, I never got the urge to have kids. And I just don't believe in having kids if you don't really, really want them. They're human beings. So, right.
Exactly. They're
Kids turn
big
into adults.
responsibility. So now you pick out all the smart ones that didn't have kids, and you're like, oh, okay, we can deal with you and we'll help you get financially independent.
Yeah, and like I said, I kind of started doing that because I noticed that I had a unique ability to talk to them about things that people that there's nothing against a planner that has kids. Obviously, I'm very for people having children. It's just, they just don't think about it the same way. They don't think about legacy planning the same way. Like, people who don't have kids have an opportunity to provide to charities, to give to a church, to provide a scholarship program, to do, and nobody talks to them about that because it's all about going to the family. But do nieces and nephews really need more money coming to them if mom and dad are going to be providers for them, for their legacy planning? So it's just things like that. Long-term care isn't discussed enough, especially with the women who are going to be. That's one thing that I know I was very fearful of if like my husband passes and I'm alone and I don't have kids, like how's long-term care going to happen for me? So there are some individual things that come up that I think, I don't know if you would know that if you didn't have kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's things that I'm not going to know on an emotional level that, parents deal with. I probably know it a little bit better because I dealt with so many parents with the teaching part of it, but it's never going to be a personal feeling that I've ever had. Right. So just part of it.
Well, and I think it is as a parent where it's all about the sports. Oh, and then it's about the school, and then it's about the college, and then it's about the you never really kind of get it. What's your long-term retirement plan? Well, I'm hoping my kids will outlive me and they take care of me like I took care
Yeah,
of them.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
because all of the money, time, and effort went into a lot of things I wasn't expecting.
Oh, I know. Yeah. That's the one thing I keep getting told is you're so lucky because kids are so expensive. I'm like, that really wasn't my reason, but that's okay.
I don't
Kids
think
are
luck had
expensive.
anything to do with it either.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's funny. We always say kids are expensive, but I kind of think it's maybe the parents that are the expensive because we're always like, oh, you should try this or you should go do this thing. And then we're like driving them around to 15 different soccer practices and it's all self-induced, really.
Exactly.
They
Kids
probably
like,
would
I
have been
just
just
want to stay
happy
home
at
and read
home,
book.
you
I'm
know.
good.
Exactly. So it's funny.
Larry, so talk to me about when somebody is planning, because I know that for the longest time, I just thought that, I was going to be 23 forever for a really long time. I was going to be 23 when I was 81. Like there was going to be no difference. And it's like, oh no, there's a substantial difference between being 20 and
Yeah.
going out and hitting the workforce and the rambunctious and the excitement of it all. And then as kind of time goes on, it was really a thing to go,
Mhm.
oh, there's either got to be an easier way or there's got to be a shorter way, or I'm sure there's don't have to be working this hard doing that much.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a weird paradigm in financial planning to think that, hey, these are probably my, not necessarily the biggest years of financial gain, but certainly the most ambitious of
Yeah.
financial gain. Let's put it that way. So talk to me about kind of that dichotomy of people understand, what do you see them needing to
Mhm.
understand the most about kind of life
Right.
in general when it comes to financial planning.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the word retirement is such a weird, financial planning, retirement. It's such a weird trigger word for it. And I think we think of like I get told a lot, oh, you must be really good at math, like it's like it's really so much more emotional than people think it is. I feel like, I mean, I definitely not a therapist. I'm not saying I am, but I definitely feel like I'm in therapy sometimes, kind of walking people through decisions that they've made. There are times that people leave meetings with tears in their eyes and stuff like that. I mean, it is a very emotional thing. And I think the thing that people need to realize, because I get people who go, oh, I'm, YOLO, you only live once. I don't really care about, planning for the future. I'm going to work forever. There's always these kind of excuses. But when you dig into what people, I would say pretty universally want, is financial independence or freedom. When you hit that point that you know that you can self sustain for the rest of your life and you can do what you want when you want, you can invite people who you want and tell other people to go away. You can, like there's nobody holding you to, you have to make a certain amount of money to be able to survive. That financial freedom is kind of a universal want. And so I kind of talk about, instead of retirement necessarily, I talk about, even though that's the name of our company, I talk a lot about financial freedom. When do you want that financial independence piece? And that's kind of what I think people should focus on more, is like, when do you want that time where you don't have to worry about making another cent if you don't want to, and doing what you want when you want, kind of thing. And essentially, I would say, as young people, I think young people traditionally, I would say probably I'm Gen X, Gen X and maybe millennials, but I know Gen X, we really weren't talked about retirement, investing, that kind of stuff. 401ks were really new still. There wasn't a lot of that kind of discussion around the table. I do think that the millennials and Gen Z are they're getting it a little bit more, I think, which is kind of interesting. I have a lot of like younger, like kids of clients right now coming to me, and one girl, like, she's a lady, she's 24, so I shouldn't call her a girl. One lady
We're
is
all girls.
yeah, I
We're all
know,
girls and we're
exactly.
all women.
Exactly. But one young lady, she basically was saying she feels so behind and everybody else is ahead of her. I'm like, wow. I said, are you discussing this with your friends? And she's like, yeah, they started their Ross like a long time ago and blah blah blah. Like, it's funny, they're actually talking about it, which I don't think I've ever had a conversation with like a friend, and except for when I'm in this industry, about finances and stuff. We just didn't discuss it very much. So I think, it's really interesting me, because I think you hit a certain point in your life where you go, I need to be more organized because I'm starting to burn out. I'm starting to get tired. I always say, actually, burnout coaches are a good resource for me, because I'm either dealing with people who are burnt out and want to figure out stuff, or they have people that are burned out and figuring out how to get done faster. And I think that that's just unfortunately a product of, we overwork ourselves so much. It's always about being ambitious and making more money because that's more success. But a lot of times we don't focus on what does that show for us. And it's funny, I had a conversation with a lady yesterday, and she was saying, she got a raise and she wants to make sure that it's not wasted or squandered. She wants to make sure that she's using it the best way possible. And I would say she's probably in her late 30s, early 40s. That's kind of the time we start to think about it typically. But I do think that there is a wave now of like younger people thinking about it more, mainly because I think the affordability of housing has gotten so bad that they're like, okay, if I'm not going to be able to buy a house, I got to figure out some other stuff, which apparently I was just doing a little YouTube short on this. Apparently, the number one concern for the election, for the US election, for Gen Z, is housing affordability, not the economy like the other generations. So I think it's really interesting how the different generations are going to be handling this, I think.
Right. Well, it was interesting because a few years ago I had heard a stat that Gen Zs were didn't want to buy houses. They wanted to rent. And it was
Yeah.
like, but that's the number one wealth transfer period, right?
Hmm.
Like, you really do want to figure that out, at least to have
Yeah.
an educated decision of, I don't want to own, for a very valid reason, but you want
Yeah.
to know what that reason is very consciously,
Mhm.
as opposed
Yeah.
to just avoiding it because it's too much like work to think about
Oh,
it.
totally.
And
Yeah,
like,
I totally.
oh,
I would say
no, oh
educated
no.
choices, right? That's the thing. We make a choice whether we're educated or technically chosen or not, just not choosing or not deciding to make an educated choice is kind of a choice in itself, right? So I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. Well, and it was interesting for me growing up because my mother came from lots of money and my father came from no money, like not a
Oh,
little, but none.
decision. Yeah.
And so the conversations were always vastly different. My mother was always talking about her stocks and her lipstick funds, as she used to call them, is it making more so that I can take money out and
Mhm.
without depleting the fund?
Yeah.
And the term, right? No, I have not heard anybody today talk about a lipstick fund in that it's always about retirement. It's always about financial freedom. And
Yep.
I always heard financial freedom as, oh, that's the day I can take, 100,000 out of my income and I don't
Mhm.
have to work for it. It was never, oh, that's the day you can take 2,000 out of your
Mhm.
income
Yeah.
and you don't have to choose between this job and that job. You can pick
No,
the one you want. It's like,
exactly. Yeah.
there's so many other conversations to be having
Oh, totally.
around finances and independence than just how much do you make, how much you're putting away, when are you going to
Exactly.
retire, and how much? Like,
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I do something called bucket list planning for people, and it's a lot of times trying to get people to actually experience their lives and like actually fulfill some stuff before they retire instead of waiting for retirement because I find that to be dangerous in many
right,
respects. And I agree with you. We do a lot of like it's funny, we spend a lot of money on things that aren't important, but we won't spend money on the things that are important to us, like a trip, like, if makeup's a big thing for you, So I always have a conversation of like, what's your non-negotiable? And it's amazing how many people don't know what their non-negotiable is,
right.
or there's like a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, well, you can choose a couple, but we can't have like 15 non-negotiable. So I'm like, if you want to save more, it's not going to happen that way. So
Mhm.
it's funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think too that people who have a, a financial nest egg and they're used to kind of withdrawing from it, they're used to living off it, they're used to playing with it, have a different sense of fiscal awareness than
Mhm.
somebody that just socks it away. They don't pay attention to it,
Yeah.
or they not socking it worse,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not paying attention to it. It's, you don't understand the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs. People who tend to sock it away freak out when the market goes down, and everybody
Hmm.
else is like, "Oh, sweet, Amazon's on sale. I will
Yeah.
buy."
Opportunity to buy more. Exactly. Yeah. That's funny. I call it the muscle, like the money muscle in some respects, because I agree with you. If you don't ever spend your emergency fund, how do you know how to refill it? Like you
Right?
don't like the emergency fund. I have so many people who feel so guilty using their emergency fund for tires, for a new car, for whatever it is that they're having to purchase. I'm like, that's what it's there for. Like
Yeah,
you're
rename that stuff is what you got
I
to do.
know
That's a
exactly.
terrible
I
name
have
for
been
any
thinking
amount
about
of
that.
money.
I have been thinking about that because I'm like, that's what it's there for. I mean, it's supposed to be between you and you causing a bunch of debt. That's what
Exactly.
that's what your
That's why we call the
emergency fund
lipstick
is
money.
there
It was
for.
like,
Yeah,
I want it. The money's there.
yeah.
I will spend it
I'm
on
gonna buy
tires
it.
or whatever.
Exactly. I
I
think we
personally
spend.
named my car, and her name is Nibs. Cowboy Nibs is her full name.
Oh,
And every
I
time she
love
gets
that.
a new pair of boots, I go, "Yep, the thigh highs, aren't they cute?"
Oh, how funny. I love that. That's hysterical. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think we don't spend it. I think we spend in such a weird way instead of life enjoying way. I don't know how to put it, but there's a lot of like we
absolutely.
buy, Amazon and all that stuff doesn't help because it's all these little nitty purchases that we purchase,
Right.
but it's not really making that big of a difference for us.
Oh yeah, if they had an Amazon for stocks,
Oh
that'd be
gosh, yeah.
awesome.
That probably is
I'd be
coming.
in
He's
there
trying to
all
take over the
day long.
world. So that he's taking over medical. Now it's going to be stocks, right?
We should start that software. That's a damn good idea.
Yeah.
Uh, And I was going on a train, and all of a sudden it departed. My mental
It'll come
train
back.
went. "Phew." Awesome. At any rate, so talking about purchasing the little things, go
Mhm.
to Timo and shop like a billionaire. And it's like, well, you should be going and buying stocks because back in my day, you had to buy a sheet of, 100 stocks or whatever it was. And
Mhm.
if the stock was $500 and you didn't have 500 times 100, you didn't buy that stock. That's the way that went
Exactly.
down. Now, I mean, you can buy stocks for 11. I can buy Amazon for $11. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not buying a stock, but
Yeah,
I can buy $11 worth of stock in
totally agree.
Amazon. And there's such freedom and
Oh
abundance in
yeah.
that, and the empowerment I think that people can have by going, okay, what do I want to invest my $25 in? Do I want it in Amazon? Do I
Mhm.
want it in, you know, Green Rainforest Cafe or whatever,
Yeah,
the thing is?
and
I
fun.
would
Yeah.
think that that's a game I could play all day long.
Yeah, it's funny. It's amazing how many people don't see it that way, though, unfortunately. I agree with you. The partial share buying is a game changer, in my opinion. I really think
Yeah.
that the fact that you can buy a partial share is just, I mean, I didn't even think that that would happen, and it's a huge thing. And I don't think people take advantage of that enough, honestly, because people think, oh, it's got to be an individual stock, but it can be ETFs, it can be, like you can buy partial shares on a lot of stuff now. But I think the thing that people don't want to do the research, because I think it brings out a I'm stupid, and quote unquote, feeling in them, like they don't understand how the business works or understand what they should be looking at. And I think it brings out some fear. I think there's fear that happens that they might be wrong, and so if they're wrong, like you find a lot that people will have like just like losers, duds, right? That are just still sitting there. I'm like, they're not recovering. They're probably not going to recover. Like, why do we still own this 3 years after, it felt so badly? And they're like, because that
I'm
would be
still the
admitting
eternal
them.
optimist. It will come up from 1 cent. I'm
Exactly.
positive
Aren't you
it'll come
supposed
back.
to, aren't you supposed to hold? I'm like, not a stock that's not coming back. Like, like take your losses. Hopefully it helps in some taxes and like let's move on and try to make some money off of it. And I am in no way a trader. Like I'm not sitting there telling people to day trade or do any of that stuff, but people don't, I think they're really afraid of losing, of
Mm.
being a failure, of being failing understanding this stuff. And it's difficult. I mean, there is a reason that people, I'm no way telling people just that this is what they should do, but there's a reason that the indexing craze is out there, because people don't want to do individual stocks and stuff. It's easier to do the index. And possibly it's been more beneficial, and it makes it a little less emotional, although money is always emotional. I mean, stocks, talk to anybody in 2022 and they can tell you how emotional it was looking at their accounts. It's very emotional, but I think people just aren't quite aware of how that is. And I would say it's funny, before we started, you asked how things were. And I was thinking, it's really quiet and it's because the market's doing well. So everybody doesn't want to talk to me right now. And that's kind of the time you should be talking to me, but people freak out when the market's down. The last 2 years have been very busy. And then this year, I feel like it's been a lot quieter because the market's been really good. So, it's fortunate, but that's kind of the way people tend to be when it comes to stocks and their money.
Mm. Well, in life in general, one of the biggest things I have learned is that when people try and complicate a situation, it
Mhm.
means that they're trying to pull wool over your eyes. And
Yeah,
when
a little
people
bit.
simplify a complex concept, that's when you're actually learning something. So,
Yeah.
peeps, if you're terrified of this, now is the time to go and talk to Lisa and go, okay, explain ETFs to me. What the heck is that? And what does it
Yeah.
really mean? Or explain IRA. What is that? And what does it really mean? It's there is nothing wrong with not understanding something that you've never been exposed
Totally.
to. I
Yeah.
don't understand the planets and gas on Jupiter. So as soon as I go up to somebody that studies that shit, of course I'm gonna feel a little left out.
Exactly.
But that's okay because that hasn't been my job. That's not my focus. It's not why I'm here. And if that's the thing I want to go and learn, that is their job. That is their job to
Yeah.
explain it, to make it simple, not to take care of you, not to pull wool over your eyes, but to actually educate you on the how simple it can be, even though it's a very complex process.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm fascinated with it. I love it. I think dabbling in it is all of our responsibility because there's such a tremendous feeling of empowerment that comes with that, the goods, the bads, and the uglies, right? Everybody's going to
Yeah.
buy something that fails. Who cares? Like your TV is going to break down at some point too. So think of it that way.
I
Move
love
on.
that. That's great. I'm borrowing that. I like that a lot.
Right.
It's true.
It's true, right? I mean, yeah, we get attached to it, but we just go, oh, okay, buy another one. It's not
Yeah,
that big of a deal. You'll figure it out.
exactly. Exactly. No, I totally agree. Yeah, it's funny. It's just it is it every starting a new relationship with the client or with the prospect or something is always interesting because you just kind of wonder emotionally where they're going to take this. And every client's different because they bring their own set of like how you told your story of how your parents were and how they dealt with money, and they bring all of that with them, and sometimes it's a good story and sometimes it's a not so good story, and so it's a very interesting industry to be in, to see how
Absolutely.
human behavior and childhood really still plays a role on how we self-identify, and I hate to say it, but people think money is self-identification in some respects. Yeah.
It's just fun, peeps.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
It should
And the
be
best
fun.
time to go
Money
is
is
when you
supposed to
don't
make
need
life fun. Exactly.
exactly. The best time to go and talk to somebody like you is when you don't need them. It's like
Mhm.
it's just curiosity based. It's like learning the rules to a game is way more fun when you get to learn the rules of the game than when you have to learn the rules of the game.
Exactly.
I love it. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you about a Cinderella story of one of your clients. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.
Awesome. So I'm super excited to hear about an example of a Cinderella story of one of your clients.
Yeah. So, the client journey is really interesting. It's a lot of times I get people coming to me, and especially let's just say she is coming to me and saying that, she's a little confused of where things are, never got the education that she wanted, that kind of thing. And that's a lot of times that's how women come at finance, is that they feel like they didn't get the education and then they're dumber and quote unquote than everybody else, which is absolutely not true. I can tell you so many women that have done so many things right that they're not giving themselves credit for. So basically, typically we go through that process of going through that exploration of what they've done right, what they have good in place, building that self-esteem element up that you talked about, that confidence, that self-esteem. And we go through little habits that they can change to take more control over their money. I think the thing that we've been saying a lot, which I totally agree with, is it's about awareness. It's about looking at things. It's about, is she opening up her bank account and actually looking at the transactions that are happening on a monthly, or weekly would be lovely, but monthly basis at least? Are we looking at credit cards? That's the biggest thing, is people do not look at credit card charges, and it scares the living daylights out of me, because how many charges are not yours or not, fraudulent? And on top of it, you don't get to learn you as a spender, because we all get that little emotional, like, yay, it's coming, and we get all excited, and it comes and we're excited about it. But if you don't watch your patterns and go, I buy a lot of $10 things that I kind of don't need, and you don't have to, but it's you making these decisions, it's you deciding on things, it's you having that conversation with yourself. And I have seen so many clients that basically, when they open up their bank account and they look at things on a regular basis, that it completely changes their journey. And they are able to, to basically be able to live within their means, save the amount that they want to save, feel fulfilled and satisfied with their life. This is not a prison that you put yourself in. This is fulfilled, happy, excited about everything, and talking about retiring early. And so we've taken, this woman who comes to me who feels like they're lost, that they're never going to get anything organized, to being empowered, understanding herself as um, the hero in her story, and that she gets to make these decisions, and that, even her subconscious isn't going to take over for her. She's going to decide what she's going to spend her money on, where she's going to save it, how she's going to do that. And then basically she gets to decide when she wants to stop doing that job and maybe go back to school, maybe take on another challenge, maybe start a new business, maybe it is retiring, maybe it's spending more time with her kids, whatever that is. That's that time that you can really embrace. And I've seen so many clients, one in particular, who's taken that journey from feeling that she's not going to ever be able to retire to going, you mean I could stop like in a couple of years? I'm like, yeah, it's possible, because she did that self-realization work. And my job's really to guide people. It's not to do things for you. I mean, I can help with investing, I can help with answering questions and giving suggestions, but it really is your journey on it. And I think the biggest thing we think is we'll hand it over to somebody else and they'll do it for us so we don't have to think about it. I tell you, those plans don't work out well, because I can't care about your money more than you do. It just doesn't work that way. So I think that that's probably the client experience that is the most Cinderella like, and hopefully is more than not when working with me. But that's kind of what we do, is a lot of empowerment and making sure people feel in control. That's the biggest thing.
I love it. And so many visuals, I'm going, oh my God, I so wish somebody had explained finances to me this way. Instead of looking in your closet and going, oh, I have this beautiful pair of Louis Vuitton, nothing against you, Louis, but I'd rather go, oh, look at my Louis Vuitton stocks. They're doing awesome, which I don't think Louis public, but to be able to go into your to your portfolio and go, oh my God, look at all this stuff I have. And you have that, and it grows and it increases, and it can feel as much fun as going into your closet and looking at your shoes, going into your portfolio and looking at your assets. So, when that becomes the joie de vivre, and you're like, oh, instead of buying a Starbucks, I can buy a Starbucks stock. And, what do I want to do right now? And being able to just flick that switch in your brain to go, oh,
Yeah.
I get it. This can be fun.
I totally agree. I mean, I've had clients that have trips planned for retirement, and we start working on them so that they can go earlier. Vienna is one of the locations that one client really wanted to go to, and, going earlier was our goal. So I think that's the thing, is that that realization that if I really want to go to Vienna, or I really want to go to France, or really whatever it is, that you can make that happen. And maybe putting down the $5 Starbucks, even though all these other people are saying that's ridiculous, $5. And it's really not about the money you're saving. It's about the habit that you're building. It's about the confidence you're building. It's about the focus you have. And so, yeah, the $5 might not make a difference, but now you're focused on something bigger. And I think is more exciting for most people, because it's theirs and it's what they want.
Yeah, I love it. I know people are going to want, our peeps in particular are going to want more from you. So how did they start that journey with you?
So I think the best way is to kind of get to know me. I do have a pretty active YouTube channel, so I'll make sure I give you the link for that, so they can always, ask questions, see what's going on, and then always reach out, obviously if you have questions. And we do a 15-minute just kind of get to know you call, just to see if we can help. And if we can't, we provide resources. And if we can, then we tell you what the next steps are. But I'm always here to help people. That's, as I said from the beginning, I'm in this to help people. It's not really about just building a pocketbook for myself. It's about how do I help people make a big impact. So, and as a business owner, we all know we put too many hours into our business. I want to make sure that I'm helping people. I'm doing that and not just like squandering away time. That's not my ideas of fun.
I love it. We'll of course have all of Lisa's links in the show notes. So go ahead and scroll down, click on the links, open up in a new browser, because we're not done yet. So Lisa, I get to ask you, at what point in life did you know you're a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
So this could be a unique answer for you. I actually never made the decision to become an entrepreneur.
So I'm not.
It's funny. I went into insurance. I'm like, okay, so I sell a policy and I make money of that, and that's how I make my money. And my husband and I just never had that conversation that I was becoming a business owner by doing that and starting that journey. And I remember sitting there like 3 years in, I'm like, oh, I actually own a business. It's funny. I didn't make that
Awesome.
decision. I probably still would have done it, because the corporate world just was not my deal. But I just think it's funny that was kind of how I got into it, was just wanting to help people and figuring out this whole weird world of insurance that I had never really had any exposure to at that point. And boom, 3 years later, I was like, oh, I'm a business owner. I actually should maybe look at corporations, and I should look at, because it's just part of my regular income at that point. I wasn't making that much, honestly, a couple of years into the business. So it's funny. I never really made the decision. That was never a dream of mine, but I can't imagine doing anything else now. I just love it.
That's awesome. Well, we're glad you made the decision, knowingly or otherwise. Awesome. So, any last words for our peeps?
No, I just hope people are enjoying their year. This year's kind of gone by so fast. And I hope that if there were things that they wanted to do this year financially that maybe they haven't gotten to, that there's still plenty of time to just do a couple of things, get some stuff checked off, start having questions. Don't wait until January 1st to do this. We hit the end of the year and we think that it's too late, and it's never too late to just start doing something better for yourself.
Go and make that call now. Well, you want to, not when you need to. So thank you, Lisa, so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I know how valuable it is.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was fun.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedlock. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.